Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the show. It is episode 345. It's October 7th, 2022, and we're joined today by the president of Think Iowa City, Josh Schamberger. Josh, thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
yeah, you bet. And I guess just like generally from a high level, explain to me what Think Iowa City is. I know you're involved with the World Cup and wrestling, UWW, USA Wrestling events, but like in a broader sense, what do you guys do?
We're the official destination marketing organization for our community. So just about every city in this nation has a chamber of commerce or a convention and visitors bureau or a sports commission. And so I head up the convention and visitors bureau and sports commission economic development agencies here in this community. So a lot of different things from conferences and meetings to festivals and events. But obviously we spend a lot of time in sports and we love our wrestling here. So quite a bit of time in wrestling.
Cool. How between concerts and sports and conventions and I mean, are you more than weekends than not or weeks out of the year? You guys got your hands inside some kind of an event?
Yeah, I would say, I was at least 80% of the weeks or weekends we're involved in something. We just finished last week the girls' state volleyball tournament for the state of Iowa, and that was quite an undertaking. And we've done state baseball and a lot of different festivals and arts events. So a lot of activity, which is good stuff.
Out of all those, wrestling aside, because I know you do like wrestling, all the other things that you guys do, which of them interests you the most?
That's a good question. Probably our hockey team. I wasn't really didn't follow hockey very closely, but a couple years ago we booked and we secured a tenant here. That's the AA team for the Minnesota Wild. And so I've gotten to really get into hockey, and through that, it's interesting because I think the hockey fan is probably the closest thing to a wrestling fan in terms of there are moments to where it's almost animalistic in the stands, and that's awesome. So I'm not an expert in any stretch, but I really love hockey, and we have a team here called the Iowa Heartlanders, which feed up to the Minnesota Wild.
Okay. Like the Heartland Inn. I'm very familiar with the Iowa City, Coralville area. How about this? What if you're interested in hockey or you like it, and it is closer to wrestling with the way you described it. What's the furthest, most different, unique? What's on the other end of the spectrum that you guys kind of events you guys put on?
Ah, boy. We've put on, film festivals, a lot of arts activity, Summer of the Arts, the Jazz Fest, the Arts Fest, a lot of those activities. We've helped with parades and blues and barbecue, helping our city with blues acts and things like that. So as it relates to sports, we've hosted the state tennis tournament, state golf tournament. So those are definitely different environments from a spectator standpoint than hockey or wrestling.
Sure. And I guess we'll kind of turn to wrestling now. Like, you guys worked with USA Wrestling you've worked with USA Wrestling, had wrestling events there. I know the girls' state tournament was there. I'm sure there's been probably other wrestling things. Tell me about the World Cup and maybe what makes that a little bit different with international countries and everything else.
Yeah, well, very well. We hosted the 2012 and 2016 Olympic trials, and that
Oh
was
yeah.
some big events. And then right after 2016 Olympic trials, I was asked to consider whether or not we'd be up for hosting the 2018 World Cup. And I didn't know a lot about it at that point, but I had heard about it, and I remember, Metcalf at the time going, I think 5-0, and when it was in Los Angeles or something like that, and I would always follow that stuff, but. So we explored it with myself and the University of Iowa, and we took a chance on it and hosted the 2018 World Cup. And, I just couldn't have been more excited and impressed with how that event came together. All these different nations coming in, and in many cases, a lot of these wrestlers from other parts of the world. If we just had 500 or 1,000 people in there, they would have wrestled in front of more people than they ever have in their life.
Yeah.
I was just in Serbia with some people on your teams, and there might have been at its peak 400 people in the building, 500 people. So it's a different atmosphere, and it was really cool to walk away from that and to see like some of the folks from Japan, some of the athletes there. I remember them telling me that, in our country, it's not looked upon favorably to show a big emotion after matches, but we just couldn't help it inside Carver Hawkeye Arena. And that was really rewarding to see those guys go nuts when they beat Cuba and then go up and get some ice cream and walk around. So it's fun. And I was up for doing it again, but I asked them to make some changes and consider a new product. And fortunately they did. And that's where we're headed.
So tell me about these changes that you were asking for and got or getting.
Yeah. So in 18, I just, we had some problems with Russia and Iran. They knew for a year that they had committed to the World Cup and they were qualified. But at the end of the day, both of them played games. And, they want to present it, particularly Russia wants to present it as though they couldn't get appointments at the embassy. They didn't even start asking for appointments as much as we kept asking them to. They didn't even request their appointments until like 6-7 weeks before the event. So, of course, it was going to be very challenging to get the interview slots. And so, they blamed it on us, and that was ridiculous. And so, I just talked to UWW, and I took Luke Eustace, who works for me. He wrestled at Iowa, and he's been with me for a while now. And we went over for another event, UCI, cycling event in Switzerland. And we made a point to have a pit stop with UWW and just said, hey, we want to do it again, but this is the deal. You got to really put some teeth into the penalties if countries don't show up that qualify. It can't just be a laissez-faire sort of 5,000 euro fine or Swiss francs fine, as whether or not they even pay it. And so, and then I also said, we really want you to consider improving the product even more and putting the women on the same stage as men. Let's do it all together, 5, 12 nations, really blow it up and create a new product that is good for the fans and something you can sell that much more in the future. And, John, Danielle, and Gordon there were really impressed by the sort of presentation and idea. And then COVID hit. And then we kind of got, tabled for a little bit while we worked through COVID. And then in Oslo, before Oslo World Championships, we sent an updated proposal with all the details with Rich to Oslo, and President Lalovich and UWW agreed. And so we're on our way now with the upcoming World Cup.
Man, that's fantastic. Yeah, 2018 was awesome. This will be at the Extreme Arena in Coralville. Is that right?
Yeah, it'll be at the new arena that we've had a couple of these other USAW events.
Yep. What's the capacity there, and do you guys expect to reach it?
Yeah, full sellout is for this event. It's probably going to be somewhere around 5,200, and I certainly expect to get there. It's a little more challenging because the one curveball that UWW threw at us that I didn't quite expect when we decided to go forward with the new product is they moved the World Cup dates from April to December. And April is perfect. Right after NCAAs, we're really kicking off freestyle Greco season, all that. Now we're in the second week of high school wrestling season. And we got Iowa wrestling season. And so there's some other things that take up people's times, particularly wrestling fans' time. So we're doing the best, and I think we'll get there, but it's been a little bit of a slower go than it certainly was when we had it in April.
Yeah. What's the I guess process like for you working with these international countries and probably their national governing bodies, I would assume?
Yeah. It's been challenging for sure. I went over to Serbia, and as soon as everybody, Kozak would run the numbers for me like on the hour, and I'd say, hey, here's who's going to qualify. And then I'd immediately run down and make sure I talked to those nations before they left, which was great. So I went over there and met with all their national federations and presidents just the moment they qualified and gave them all the information. Here's how you do your visa process, everything. That all went really, really well. And then it's a matter of like follow-up, right? We have to count on them to actually work on the same timeline as we work on. And a lot of times, just culturally, people work at different schedules and times. And so it's been interesting. I've had more overnight conversations and 2 a.m. conversations than I've ever had on WhatsApp, because that's when they want to talk. But whatever we got to do to get it done, the guy from Kyrgyzstan has been blowing me up. He's like the emoji king. If you ever want to go emoji for emoji with a guy from Kyrgyzstan. They're
Those are
they're going to coach the
universal.
all world. They're going to coach the all world team, so they have a couple extra things that they need. Moldova is going to coach the all world women's team, so but it's all good. It's all on the right track. Iran is on the right track. The number one question, besides who's on the Team USA roster, is Iran really coming? As of this moment in time, on November 7th, they are on track to come. So we're working very hard on them in Dubai, their embassy, and all that stuff.
Yeah, and you kind of laugh, right? Like they are in right now. I'm telling you, with the thought that something could happen, right? And things have happened in the past. I don't know. What kind of things do you guys take care of to help that process and make sure that this does happen? Is it just constant communication, or?
It's constant communication. When I was over there, I actually sat down and met personally with President De Beer, which was a little interesting, and their team leader, Saeed. Um, I kind of was a little intimidated by that meeting just because they wanted to meet at a certain time and place, and they had about 50 people there, and most of them in suits. And here's
What?
just me walking in, and they had a live television camera crew over in the background filming the whole meeting and then coming up and zooming in on my credential, and it was really awkward.
What?
But I walked up and I knew who he was, and I just kind of hit him on the shoulder and said, "Hey, I just want you to know that Terry Brand says hello." And he kind of laughed at me, and first he was taken aback that I hit him in the shoulder, and then he said Terry Brands, and it totally broke the ice, which was good. And I said, "Yeah, if you come, we're gonna have an exhibition match between you and Terry, a rematch in his living room."
Yeah.
So he liked that, but it's a constant communication, and it's also working with all these 18 embassies around the world. And I've had to get our United States senators involved, like I did in 18. So Senator Ernst and Senator Grassley from Iowa and their staffs have been really, really helpful in helping the US OPC and everybody kind of expedite appointments to make sure that they get their interviews and ultimately get their visas to get in the country.
And maybe that's what it is. What are the biggest challenges to getting all these teams over here,
The
or
biggest
any in
challenge is
particular?
getting appointments at the embassies. They are all very, very short staffed around the world. And obviously, some nations, because of politics and what's happening in the world, they are extra particular and very scrutinize all of those interviews and who's on the list and those sorts of things, understandably. So just getting the appointments, and then once they get the appointments, things are really good, but they got to get the interview slots. And so we're pressuring the embassies to make sure that they open up the slots, as my friend Almaz from Kyrgyzstan was asking me this morning for his interview slot. So it's something I never thought I'd do in my life, quite honestly, but it's been interesting. But I'm just doing what I can to put on a wrestling tournament and have the best that are able to come are here, and hopefully get beaten up pretty good by Team USA. But that's up for Terry and Bill.
Sure. How do you make an emoji that says what he was trying to communicate to you this morning? Where's my
Well,
final time?
I wish I could text you these or show you these, but this guy Almaz, he speaks pretty good English, and most of them speak okay English, or I can figure it out. But he is like the king of I don't know if that'll come through. He's
There
the
we go.
king.
Hello, brother.
I mean,
Muscle.
everything is hello brother, and a fist. And so I always try to make him feel comfortable, and he loves to send me photos of me and him in Serbia, and then in Rome when we were at the workshop.
Ah, that's too funny.
And everything says hello my brother with fists and 10 other emojis. So I try and make him comfortable by responding hello back my brother, and I always do a double fist. So
Oh, that's great.
it's just different cultures, and it's cool. I'm excited to have him here just like everybody else.
Yeah. So he's one of how many that your countries that you're dealing with? 18 with
Uh,
the all world team.
the,
Is that what you said?
the world team has probably 7 to 8 nations on the men's and 7 to 8 on the women, and then there's 10 other
Oh
nations that
yeah.
are qualified.
So it's
So
18.
it's a good amount of embassies around the world. I've never even heard of some of these towns that the embassies are in, but um, Bashkek is the one that he's working with in Kyrgyzstan.
Okay. So that guy in Kyrgyzstan likes to send all the emojis and everything else. He's really good at keeping communication with you. Are you finding some countries that's the opposite?
100%. Mongolia is a challenge, and,
Okay.
and so is China. And but China, I feel really good about because they don't. It's not a big long line to get appointments, and China is run by a really good coach, and I met him, and we had a long conversation. And I'm not worried about them, but Mongolia, it's just tough. So hopefully they're getting things arranged. And I know Pete and Christina are staying on top of them because they have both a men's and women's team that qualified for World Cup.
Uh-huh.
So hopefully they'll get it straightened out. Iran will get their appointments, and all things said, we should be good. I think one of the more interesting ones is Ukraine. The entire Ukraine women's team's coming. We have several Ukraine men coming. The heavyweight on the men's all-world team is the Ukrainian heavyweight. And they're all working through Poland and living and working in Poland. So we're working with the Warsaw Embassy on them, but they're in a really good place for where they need to be. And they're going to be coming over here early to do some stuff at Colorado Springs, and then heading over here to hang out for a while. And then there'll be, after World Cup, there's going to be a week-long post-women's team camp that Terry's running with about six nations.
Oh, awesome.
Canada's going to come down. Kyrgyzstan is actually bringing their entire women's team, even though they have nothing to do for World Cup, but they're going to stick around for the women's team camp with Terry.
Very cool. Very cool. What excites you the most about an event like this, whether it's something on your end or the wrestling itself or anything in between?
The most exciting thing is when those athletes roll into the arena for the first time and see more than 400 people in the stands.
Yeah.
And they're going nuts. I remember that vividly in 18. I remember walking them in and just showing them Carver for the first time when we took them on the bus and there was nobody in there, and their eyes like almost came out of their sockets. They're like, these will be full, and these seats, and I'm like, yeah, full. And just to see like the Cubans and in that since the Japanese and the guys from Kazakhstan, it was crazy, right? And to get them in that environment and to feel that, almost like the air gets sucked out of them, and then we got them right.
I feel like we're luring them in, like come into
are.
my cage, have a piece of cheese, and then.
But the rules changed too since 18. That all-world team is no joke.
Yeah.
If you look at that all-world team, I believe just about everybody on both teams medaled in Serbia. So that'll be amazing in and of itself. I mean, that 57-kilo guy from beat Gilman in the finals, he's coming to wrestle. So they're all stacked on those teams. And I told Terry and Bill, I've been sending them the updates when there's changes just to make sure they know who they need to prepare for and stuff. And so these teams look pretty tough, but Bill said, yeah, Josh, don't remember, we're pretty tough too. So, but of course I know that, you goofball.
We're so good. We're so good. With our number ones, I believe we have 6 individual world champions, and Jordan's got 7, and Kyle's got 4, and Kyle's got 4, and Jaden's got 2. It's like, it's. I mean, were you much of a wrestling fan before coming? I don't know a whole lot about your background, right? I know you live in Iowa City. How long have you been there? Where did you come from before that, and were you a wrestling fan?
No, I grew up on military bases all over the world, and I spent most of my life in San Diego, and I went to school and college in San Diego. And then I moved here in the late 90s. I went to a high school in San Diego that was major wrestling high school, even though I didn't follow it very closely, with Poway High School.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Mike
yeah, so
Mike
I
Melwer's
went
there.
there, but in those
Coaches
days, I just loved to get out of school and go surf until dark.
there.
So that was my life back then. And then I moved here in the late 90s because my parents were done with the Navy military career. And then I started to pick up on some wrestling. And then my cousins are half brothers with McDonough. So
Okay.
I've known McDonough my whole life. He's been pretty much my cousin. And I followed him all the way up, and obviously his freshman year in Omaha, when he won a title, and then I just became close with Gable and Tom and Terry and all the guys before him, and just attached to the program. So I'm definitely a fan, and it's also good for the community and what we do. Right? I mean, people love wrestling, and when we put on wrestling events here, for the most part, you can count on a lot of hotel rooms and a lot of visitors. So, um, we try and do everything we can, and particularly with girls wrestling and what we've done recently with helping get that sanctioned and the girls state tournament and all that. So some good stuff all around there.
Yeah. If you think back to the World Cup in 2018, now I'm talking like, you know, during the action of the events, what things stand out to you? What are the biggest moments that you remember?
First and foremost would be that dake bomb. I mean, that thing has
100%.
been talked about and was insane. And then as I would expect, and I know people, they have their college allegiances, and everybody wants to hate on Penn State as a Hawk or hate on the Hawk. You know how I get
Yeah.
it. I totally get it. And I love that Kyvan Gadsden was on the team. I'm a super fan of Kyvan Gadsden for who he is, and I'm a supporter of Metcalf and all those guys. But seeing the Iowa fan base just absolutely celebrate Taylor and Dake, and obviously the King Jordan,
Yeah.
it was huge, and that just made me feel really, really good that it was all red, white, and blue, as it will be this time. And when people like Gross come in here and wrestle, or who has that
Yeah.
Iowa story here, and that's a tough part of his career, there he is going to be celebrated, by just as being USA, and kick the crap out of these guys, and that'll be awesome for them. David Carr, if he happens to come over here as one of the top guys on that, he'll be celebrated. Um, that's awesome. So I think those are the big ones. And then probably I think the Cuba Japan third place match was bigger than the Team USA Azerbaijan match. So that was pretty crazy duel between Cuba and Japan for third.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I was thinking, I was pretty sure you were gonna say Dake Pound. Or I wasn't sure you were gonna say that, but that's what I was. I was like, man, he just. And then it was either right before or right after that, the guy charged into him, and he like went
Again,
to the edge and hit a little hip throw or shoulder hip toss. Yeah.
he had another one of those in Serbia.
Yeah.
It wasn't as dramatic, but he had one.
He's impressive, man. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, how long have you been following USA Wrestling?
Probably since the mid 2000s. So I would say 2004 or five. So I'm definitely,
Okay.
I'm not a historian like everybody else in this town, but I
Long
love
enough.
it just the same.
Yeah.
And
No.
I'm up to speed since '05.
Yeah. So you've seen, it's obviously we haven't always been this good, right? And so 010,
Right.
2010, especially, in a couple years maybe around that, were some real lulls. But man, this is like one of the top teams all time. Would you say that's gotta get the community excited as much as anything?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it should be. I definitely remember 80 and 84. I'm old enough to remember those, and uh, Gable's era there, and obviously Tom in '96, and Lincoln McElroy, and he's a friend, and a lot of these guys are now hotel owners and business owners in town. So I run into them frequently. But what I saw in Serbia, I don't care if Russia was there or not, and I don't care what Iran said in their interview. USA is tough right now, and they're gonna, you know, they would have run through some people, some Russians too at that tournament.
Yeah, man, would have liked to have seen it. Clearly, we don't want to see him take on the best. But you mentioned these guys, and I was thinking about that every time someone says McElraven's name, I'm like, doesn't he like own a hotel or something in Iowa City? And so I assume that's true. And then like, are you working with how do you work with hotels around events? Other than like, be
Uh,
ready.
yeah, we have a staff here that basically spends a lot of time working with hotels, particularly in conferences and meetings. So they have a network of sales directors. And so as soon as we know we're going to go after something, we'll put in blocks and protect the rooms and things like
Okay.
that for what we need for staff or, when Flow's coming in for UWW, we already got blocks. That way everything's kind of covered on that front. And then once everybody's taken care of, then it's open season on what they can charge and what people pay for the balance of rooms in town. But there's a lot of wrestlers here that own hotels. You got Bruce Kenseth, who was a monster. I think he's still the only Iowa wrestler to pin his way all the way through NCAA's. He owns a boatload of hotels. Greg Stiltner, who is one of Zadok's best buddies, he owns a couple hotels. Lincoln owns a couple hotels. So yeah, that's the business they've gotten themselves into. And it's good for me too, even though I haven't been able to convince any of them yet to put a sauna in one of their new hotels because we get asked for that a lot, as you know.
I would imagine. That's too funny. So I guess one thing, what does it take to get an event, whether it's a UWW or USA Wrestling event, like the U.S. Open or the World Team Trials, right? You guys host some of these big events, but they go to other cities, right? And what does it take, and how far ahead of time are you saying we want to host the whatever in whatever year?
Well, for the most part, it just takes money, and that's kind of simplistic, but it's true. Every event you run a pro forma on and find out what do you need from sponsorship or ticket sales to at least break even, which is really all we're trying to figure out to do. Excuse me. All we're trying to figure out and do. And then, the economy will take care of itself with the people that are spending money all over town. But, for Olympic trials, that's probably a $600,000 to $700,000 event to put on Olympic trials.
Wow.
For World Cup, this one we're doing right now, it's probably $700,000 to $800,000 to put on World Cup. For something like U.S. Open, it could be $50,000 to $60,000. So, we work very closely with Pete Isaias, who's kind of our wingman on all of these things, and
Uh-huh.
just putting together working with the local venue to get the best deal on the rent, the best deal on concessions that we need, or hospitality in the back to feed officials, to feed volunteers, table workers. I mean, there's a whole laundry list depending on what event it is. For World Cup, we need ambassadors for every country. We need food. You gotta feed them three meals a day, and they got to be to a certain menu that UWW approves from a dietitian. So there's a lot more on that front than a U.S. Open or a folk style nationals or something like that. But we've always been able to try to figure it out, and we probably worked a little harder than maybe another city would, just because Eustace and I want to see all the biggest matches right here in our backyard. So,
Yeah, and you get a lot
but
of them.
we help USAW. I mean, when we can, him and I both flew down to help Fort Worth put on the trials last time and work with Pete and work the mat, and because we knew how to do it the last two times, and Penn State kind of ran into a problem there with COVID, and understandable. So we'll do anything we can to help the sport.
Yeah. Have you guys, of all the events, have you ever thought about, or is it even up to you? I guess maybe it's up to USA. I don't know, to bid on a Worlds or Junior Worlds or Cadet.
Yeah, I mean, if I can get World Cup figured out and I can make sure that at least breaks even, which I think we're definitely on our way. There's really only one more box that I personally want to check, and I want Junior Worlds to be here, and I think we can get it. And I've talked to UWW about it, and USAW wants me to do it. It's just a matter of making sure that we can cash flow it, and that it'll work. But I don't think we'll ever get Senior Worlds. The bid fee associated with that is absurd. And there's not a return you can make on the bid fee for Senior Worlds. Other countries like that host these things, like Serbia and France, the economics are just far different. The country of Serbia is paying for Worlds. The country of Denmark is paying for the Tour de France to start off there. It's not a local municipality. It will never work. And our system is just not designed that way. So you have to figure it out. But Junior Worlds and everything below Senior Worlds, we can afford from a UWW bid fee to make it work. It's just a matter of scheduling it. But we're going to go after Junior Worlds. And so maybe we can get it in like 25. That's kind of the current target.
That would be awesome. It'd
have to be at Carver, but that's where it should be. We need all those seats.
Oh, you need to sell more seats.
Yeah, well, we just need more capacity than 5,100 for a Junior Worlds.
Sure.
So versus a dual team World Cup.
Think you could sell out Carver? Junior World Freestyle?
I hope so. I mean, at the end of the day, how many juniors are going to be on the team from the Hawks, right? Because there's definitely a Hawkeye fan base that, when they find out that there's a Hawk or two on the team, well, they want to go see that Hawk try and win a World or win a World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and so explain this how many days it is, the structure of this event, and the number of teams on men's and women's freestyle.
Yeah, so everything kind of kicks off on Friday at 7 p.m. There'll be a team presentation. And I've just mentioned the Tour de France. It's kind of like the Tour de France. They started this something new to where if you saw in Azerbaijan this past week on Friday night, they have these huge video boards and they bring out the team all at once and they introduce the team of each nation. So they're going to do that on Friday night. It'll be kind of like a UFC press conference environment vibe. And we'll allow the fans to come in and drink some beers and just watch all the teams come out. And the colors change from Japan to USA to Ukraine or whatever.
Yeah.
Friday night. And then Saturday and Sunday is the dual team tournament. Saturday, it's broken into two pools. There'll be two mats on the floor. There'll be a women's mat and a men's mat. And then it's a round robin between two pools for placing. And that leads you to Sunday. And then there'll be third place women's duel, third place men's duel, first place championship women's duel, championship men's duel. So there'll be 4 team duels on Sunday to award their podium. And then they'll be, awarded with the World Cup, which is a rather significant trophy. I just got an email a couple of days ago. It's being shipped. They make it and ship it from Italy for whatever reason. So it's on its way here. But we'll see who gets awarded the World Cup Sunday night. Hopefully it's Team USA on the top of both podiums. But there's 5 teams in each class. So on the men's side, it'll be Team USA as the 1 seed, Iran is the 2 seed, Japan is the 3 seed, Mongolia is the 4 seed, and the Republic of Georgia is the 5th seed. And then on the women's side, it's Japan being the 1 seed, Team USA 2, China 3, Mongolia 4, and Ukraine 5. And then the 6th team is the all-world team, which is comprised of the highest ranked wrestler from nations that aren't represented in those qualifying countries. Okay. So quite a team on both those fronts.
Yeah.
If you looked at, I think the worst placing finisher on the men's team was 5th place, the heavyweight.
Wow. Yeah, it's fantastic. So Sunday, you have the 3rd place matches and then the finals. 1 mat or 2 mats going on?
2 mats.
2 mats.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sunday will be 1 mat.
Okay, so 4 duels in a row.
Yep, 4 duels in a row. Yep.
Okay, awesome.
So, yeah, it'll be pretty electric, and I love the idea of doing it in Extreme. You've been there. It's just a smaller, more intimate environment than Carver, but more than that, it's got the full, multi-million dollar LEDs and ribbons and video boards and the sport lighting. And so the atmosphere, I was just going through like carpet. The whole dang carpet is green, and it'll be crazy environment. Just the setup alone.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Hopefully, when they had it in LA back a few years ago, and I know there's a huge Iranian population in LA, but the Iranian fans were there, and then lots of them, and it was loud. Hopefully some of them are in the area. Hopefully some of them make their way, because they make an event a lot of fun, as I'm sure you know.
Oh, there is no doubt. One of the first questions we had is, will we allow vuvuzelas in the arena? And I said, you bet we will.
You
So
have
you can
to.
have vuvuzelas and horns, and we actually have a pretty good marketing plan that's focused on a 4.5 hour drive of all of these different ethnicities and populations and communities to let them know that their nation is coming. And so there is a really good Iranian population in the Chicago area. And so we're spending some money and dollars to make sure that that community is well aware that Iran is coming. There's also a good Mongolian population over there. There's a good Ukrainian population north of Des Moines, communities. So we're spending a lot of time serving them targeted ads to let them know their nation's coming, and to come see them compete.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. When one of those years, it was 14, 15, maybe 16 or so, that it was in LA. We're in a hotel, we get an Uber, and we jump in, and the guy's taking us to the arena. And we're like, he's Iranian. And we get to talking, and he's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Why are you guys going to the arena? Or the Coliseum it was. I'm like, oh, the wrestling, blah, 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 the World Cup is here. And he was like, floored. He was so excited. He was like, what? That's it. I'm driving you there, and I'm parking, and I'm going in. I'm just stopped working, and yeah, I guess that's just a testament to how passionate they are.
No, they are amazing. And when we were in Serbia, I'm sure your guys reported the same, but when you looked at that very nice arena, incredible arena, just not nobody in it, right? And
Okay.
I would say 80% of the fans were from Iran, and just so passionate, so fired up, singing, chanting, vuvuzelas, but also so incredibly respectful.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they love Burroughs. He beats their guy. Standing ovation until Burroughs leaves the arena. That's just how they are. And it's just like when I remember Gilman telling me when they went to Iran and Russell, and they're sending me photos, and Gilman's in a crowd of Iranian fans looking like Justin Bieber. You know what I mean? I mean, they're that fired up to see the American wrestling kings, and that's what it's about. And many times, like when I was over there talking to Iran, I kind of felt like the Dennis Rodman of wrestling diplomacy, talking to these folks, because it's about the mat, right? And I know that there's crazy things in the world, and I'm on the other side of the fences of Iran and all those things, but these guys want to wrestle, and unfortunately, their hands are kind of tied into where their true beliefs might lie.
Yep. Yeah, but overall, man, super exciting event. Really, really looking forward to it. I'm not gonna be there this year. I think I'm at another event that weekend, but we'll have a solid team of guys. It's always fun to be around, the best wrestlers on the planet. And is there anything else you kind of wanted to touch on before we let you move on? I definitely wanted to get into the World Cup and all that.
No, no, no. I just appreciate your time, and it's really important, that wrestling fans take advantage of this, because there's not many cities. I'm obviously one of them, but there's not many cities that have the capability of actually putting on an event to bring these international wrestling fans here. There's really not. And so if the wrestling fans don't attend and support it and want to be a part of it, then it just won't happen, because USA Wrestling can't afford it. When it's happened in the past, they've obviously been very fortunate that there's a couple very, very, very wealthy people that have written some checks to make these things possible. And that's just not always a guarantee. So, just because the event's here doesn't mean you're supporting the Hawks. You're not supporting the Hawks. You're supporting Team USA. And that's what it's about. And we're trying to create an environment, particularly the women who have never had this event in the United States, ever. So to allow them to come in here and try and knock off Japan in our nation is going to be pretty badass.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Josh, thanks for coming on today. And I appreciate all you do, obviously, for the way you just described it. Footing the bill to put these events on and making it work for you guys. So keep doing what you're doing. I'm really excited and looking forward to the World Cup here in just a few weeks.
All right. Well, thanks for the time, and we'll see not you there, but the rest of the guys there.
Yeah, you bet. I'll be watching. Thanks, Josh.
All right. Thanks, bud. See ya.
Bye-bye. All right, folks. Josh Schamberger from Iowa City, giving a little background on the going-ons behind the scene with the World Cup. It should be an exciting event, and looking forward to it. That's going to do it for today's show. I'm Mark Bader. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks.